main factory, where he finds and frees most of the captive soldiers, who begin a riot and start escaping while Rogers continues on to find Barnes. Steve makes his way through the facility and happens across Bucky, who is tied down to an operating table and has quite obviously been tortured. Steve also notices an oversized tactical map mounted on the wall, with various marked installations. Steve frees Bucky, who is surprised to see that Steve is taller than him, and commits the map to memory. Schmidt, seeing the prisoners escaping and Rogers moving through the facility, sets the factory to self-destruct to cover Hydra's operations and evacuate to another facility. As the building begins to detonate, Schmidt confronts Rogers on a high catwalk, where he makes light of his similarities to Rogers following their mutual use of the super soldier serum. Schmidt expresses his belief that they have risen above the visage of normal humans before revealing his face to be a mask, removing it to display the Red Skull-like face that earned him the sobriquet the Red Skull. The Red Skull escapes the exploding facility in a strangely designed private plane, while Zola sneaks away in Schmidt's roadster. Steve and Bucky have a huge divide to cross to their freedom. Bucky crosses a trembling, buckling support beam and manages to cross to safety moments before the beam plummets into the fire below. Left with no other option, Steve backs up as far as he can and leaps over the burning chasm. Rogers leads Barnes to the roof, where they both barely manage to escape the factory themselves before regrouping with the escaped soldiers and marching back to base. Following the liberation of the Allied prisoners, Rogers gains his superior officers' respect and acknowledgement as a soldier and is given high rank and the chance to fight as Captain America, as a key figure on the war front opposing Hydra directly. The news of Captain America's success on the battlefield has swept over the world, but Rogers does not appear for his medal from Congress. The reason for that absence is in London, where Steve gives Phillips and Carter his best recollection of the Hydra base map and tells them that he intends to go to those bases and destroy them one by one, and wishes to recruit a team of men made up of those he liberated in Italy. Steve meets the Howling Commandos in a bar and they eagerly accept the offer. While there, all the men are surprised as Peggy enters dressed in a form-fitting cocktail dress. She ignores all the men, including Bucky, and flirts with Steve, telling him that she'd love to have a dance with him someday. Howard Stark outfits Rogers with advanced equipment, including a durable, custom combat uniform and a circular shield which is made of a metal called vibranium, which is lighter than steel and is vibration-resistant and will absorb heavy impacts. For the next 2 years, Rogers and his Howling Commandos lead a strong offensive, sabotaging various Hydra operations, much to Schmidt's frustration. In 1945, the team later assaults a train carrying Zola. Rogers and Barnes engage in a fight with the soldiers on the train, during which Barnes falls from the train into an icy river below to his apparent death, while the soldier locates Zola on the train and captures him. Rogers is deeply affected by the loss of his best friend and is convinced by Carter to use his sorrow as motivation to put an end to Hydra for good. Using information extracted from Zola, the final Hydra stronghold is located and Rogers leads an attack to stop Schmidt from using weapons of mass destruction on the United States. Rogers and his team prepare a battle plan to take down Red Skull at his headquarters. Rogers, dressed in a new uniform, mounts a Harley and charges the base. He easily dodges Hydra soldiers and tanks and finds himself within the base, surrounded by a Hydra army. He is taken into custody and led to the Red Skull's private weapons lab. Red Skull asks what makes Steve so special.
What made you so special?
Nothing. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. Moments before members of his team zipline into Red Skull's office. A climatic firefight ensues, as hundreds of soldiers under the direction of Phillips and Carter storm the base, killing many Hydra soldiers. Red Skull flees to his private hangar, in which a gigantic flying wing, Hydra's massive aircraft bomber powered by the Tesseract, is preparing for takeoff. Rogers climbs aboard the Valkyrie as it takes off. He sneaks into the craft where he finds dozens of plane missiles, each labeled with a different major American city. Inside the large cockpit, Captain America and Red Skull have a fisticuffs battle. Red Skull fires his cube energy pistol at Steve, who easily deflects the shots using his shield. A shot is deflected into one of the cockpit's center consoles, which contains the Tesseract. Schmidt physically handles the Tesseract, which opens a wormhole into space, sucking him into it in bright light. The cube falls to the floor, burning through the plane and falling into the ocean. Seeing no way to land the plane without the risk of detonating its weapons, Rogers instead crashes it on the Arctic shelf while making a sorrowful goodbye to Carter, making a promise to take her dancing, knowing he would never be able to make the date. Stark later recovers the Tesseract from the ocean floor but is unable to locate Rogers' body or Schmidt's aircraft. Rogers awakens in a 1940s-style hospital room. Deducing from an anachronistic radio broadcast that he was out of place, he flees outside into what is revealed to be present-day Times Square, where Nick Fury tells him he has been asleep for nearly 70 years. Stunned by this revelation, Rogers' only response is that he had a date. A year later, Fury approaches Rogers, proposing a mission with worldwide